My name is Luke Foster, and I've been driving for a rideshare company called Lyft Up for about 3 years now. I usually stick to night shifts in Greenville, North Carolina, because it's quieter and there's less traffic. But after what happened on a foggy Thursday night last October, I've never worked past midnight again. That night, I just dropped off a college student outside the ECU campus around 2 a.m. I pulled over near Comanche Street, stretching my back and sipping some coffee from a gas station cup. I remember yawning and thinking, just one more ride, and I'll call it a night. Then came the ping, Maple Street, 5 minutes away. No apartment number, just a street drop. Odd, but I've seen stranger. I reached Maple Street around 2:12 a.m. Fog had rolled in thick and heavy like a movie set. My headlights barely cut through it. The road was lined with tall oaks, their limbs like twisted fingers reaching over the road. There was no one in sight. I turned on my hazards and slowly crept along, thinking the rider might appear from behind one of the trees. I rolled the windows down to hear better. Nothing, not even crickets. Then, the back left door clicked open. I jumped so hard I nearly spilled the rest of my coffee. A figure slid into the back seat. No greeting, no noise. Just got in. Tall, male, black hoodie, hood up, head down, pale hands. My instincts prickled, but I stayed calm. "Hey there," I said, glancing at the rearview mirror. "You Luke?" He didn't answer. The name on the app was just MC. I looked at the drop-off location, Greenville Memorial Cemetery, Gate 2. I gave a nervous chuckle. Bit of a late-night walk, huh? Nothing. The guy didn't even blink. Fine, I thought. Maybe he's just tired or drunk. I've dealt with worse. As we drove through the fog, the silence became unbearable. I've had plenty of quiet riders, but something about this guy was different. There was no sound at all coming from him. No breathing. No shifting in the seat. No phone light. Even weirder, the interior temperature started to drop. The heater was on, and yet, I could see my breath in the mirror. My arms had goosebumps, and my fingers started to tremble slightly on the steering wheel. I glanced back. He hadn't moved, still staring forward. His head was slightly tilted to the right now, like he was listening, but there was nothing to hear. Then I looked at him through the rearview mirror, and that's when I felt my stomach turn. His reflection was off. It looked glitchy, like static on an old VHS tape. Blurry, unfocused, as though he wasn't fully real in the mirror. But when I turned my head to look directly, his face was normal. Pale, sure, but human. I snapped my eyes back to the road. This was not a prank. This was something else. About 10 minutes later, we approached the cemetery. Gate 2 was a side entrance, barely used anymore. I'd passed it once during the day, rusted iron, weeds crawling up the fence, and a flickering street lamp. I slowed the car, heart pounding. We stopped directly in front of the gate. I said, "We're here." Nothing. 5 seconds. 10. 15. He didn't move. Then, suddenly, the ride ended on the app. Trip complete. I turned my head fully this time. The back seat was empty. No door had opened. No footsteps. No exit. He was just gone. I froze. You know that sharp pulse in your ears when fear hits full speed? That's what I felt. I leapt out of the car with my flashlight and checked the back seat. Under the car, across the road, no sign of anyone. The fog was thicker than ever now. It felt alive, pressing in from every angle. I jumped back in the car and hit the locks. The silence inside was deafening. I drove off, heart in my throat. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I couldn't shake it. I needed an explanation. I needed to know if someone had played a trick on me, or if I'd lost my damn mind. I went back to the cemetery during daylight. At Gate 2, there's a small white building labeled Maintenance Office. I found an old groundskeeper there, sipping sweet tea on the porch. "Sir," I asked, "do you know anything about strange stuff happening at Gate 2? He looked up at me, slowly. "You a driver?" "Yeah." "Did a man in a hoodie get in your car?" I froze. "Yes." He sighed and motioned me to sit. His name was Tom Delaney, and he'd worked at Greenville Memorial for nearly 40 years. According to him, I wasn't the first driver to report this. His name was Calvin Myers, he said. Used to be a night gravedigger back in the 90s. Worked this very gate. One rainy night, he was walking home after his shift. A drunk driver hit him at the corner of Maple Street. Died on the spot. I stared at him, unable to speak. Ever since then, people say they see him. Tom continued. He flags down rides and always asks to go home, but he never makes it past the gate. Tom got up and walked inside. When he came back, he handed me an old, yellowed laminated photo. It was a group photo of cemetery workers from 1997. There, in the back row, was the same black hoodie, the same pale face, the same hands. "Calvin," Tom said. "Quiet guy, never caused trouble, but something tells me he still thinks he's got one more ride home." I didn't know what to say. I thanked him and left. That night, I turned off my rideshare app before midnight. I haven't driven past Maple Street since. Every now and then, though, when I'm driving alone through fog, or stopped at a red light in the dead of night, I swear I hear a door click open, and I never, ever look in the rearview mirror anymore, because some passengers never really leave. My name is Sarah Whitman, and I used to drive for a local cab company out of Flagstaff, Arizona. I've since quit, not because the money was bad, not because I got tired of the night shift, but because of what happened to me one cold November evening on Route 19. I've never spoken about this publicly, but after hearing other drivers share strange encounters on the night files, I knew I wasn't alone. It was November 17th, a Sunday night. I was finishing a double shift that started at 1 p.m. and dragged into the night. I was about to clock out around 10:45 p.m., parked near a Chevron on the city outskirts, sipping a nearly cold coffee and rubbing my eyes. That's when dispatch radioed in. "Sarah, can you take one last call? Pick up on Old Canyon Road. Passenger says she's headed east, toward mile marker 43 on Route 19. I almost declined. That part of Route 19 was mostly desolate desert road, with few homes and even fewer streetlights. But I figured, one last fare, decent money. Then home. I tapped back, on my way. Old Canyon Road was always creepy at night, surrounded by jagged pines. The wind made a kind of whisper through them. When I arrived, the area was completely dark except for my headlights. No porch lights, no motion, just shadows. Then I saw her, a woman standing alone by the road. Long white dress, black shawl, no luggage. She was barefoot on gravel. I pulled up slowly and rolled down the window. "You Sarah?" she asked. Her voice was calm, polite, but oddly distant, like she was trying to remember how to speak. "Yes, ma'am," I said, unlocking the door. "Hop in." She got in the back seat without a word. I noticed immediately No smell of perfume or anything. She sat rigid, hands folded on her lap, eyes staring straight ahead. The destination she gave me? Just past mile marker 43. I'll tell you where to stop. There was nothing past mile 43. I'd been down that route dozens of times. It led into open desert with no marked homes. But I didn't argue. People live in trailers, off-grid sometimes. Maybe she was one of them. As we pulled onto Route 19, the desert night wrapped around us. No cars, no signs of life. Just a long, straight stretch of road and the sound of tires on asphalt. I tried small talk. You live out here long. Silence. Cold night for a walk, huh? Still nothing. She finally spoke after a minute. Do you ever wonder if people leave pieces of themselves behind? Her voice was clearer now, softer, almost echoing. What do you mean? They say the desert keeps secrets. Sometimes it gives them back. I didn't respond. I was getting that heavy chest feeling you get when something just isn't right. We passed mile marker 40, then 41, then 42. She sat still, hands never moving, eyes wide open. Then came mile marker 43. There, she said, her first normal sentence. Pull over. I slowed the cab and stopped on the gravel shoulder. No house, no mailbox, just open desert and the faint outline of what might have been. A dirt trail vanishing into darkness. Here, I asked. Yes, she whispered. Thank you for bringing me. She reached into her shawl and pulled out a silver coin. It looked ancient, tarnished. A buffalo nickel, I think. She handed it to me slowly. It's all I have. I took it, out of reflex more than anything. I wanted to say something, maybe ask if she was sure. But when I looked back up, she was gone. Gone. Not got out gone. Not walked off gone. One blink, she was no longer in the car. I opened my door, spun around with my flashlight, heart thudding. No footprints. No sound. No figure on the road. Just that horrible silence that only desert nights can bring. I got back in the cab and stared at the seat. The door never opened. The lock never clicked. It was like she vanished into air. I looked at the coin in my hand. Cold. Heavier than it should have been. I drove back to town in silence. Didn't take another fare that night. The next morning, I went to a pawn shop to check the coin. An old man behind the counter looked at it, squinting. You don't see many of these anymore, he said. Pre-World War II. Where'd you get it? I paused. Someone gave it to me last night. On Route 19. He looked up, suddenly serious. Don't joke like that. What do you mean? There's a story around here. About a woman who died out there in the 1950s. Wore a white dress. Always barefoot. Flagged down a ride home, but never made it. I stared at him. They say she pays her fare in buffalo nickels. You're not the first cabbie to come in here shaken with one of these. I left without selling the coin. It sits in a box in my drawer, wrapped in tissue, untouched. I don't show it to anyone. I don't want to invite anything back. That was my last fare on Route 19. And maybe hers, too. Because sometimes the desert gives back what doesn't belong. My name is Jeremy Lane, and I used to drive for Ride Loop, a local rideshare service in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I gave it up after what happened last winter. When I picked up the same passenger at the same time, night after night, until I asked the wrong question. This story still messes with my head. It's not just about fear. It's about losing trust in your own memory, your reality, your sanity. It started on a Tuesday night in January. during one of those cold spells where the air stings. Your face and everything feels slower. I was working the late shift, 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. It was around 2:44 a.m., to be exact, when the request came in. Pickup location, Wendell and 13th Street, near an old diner that shut down in the early 2000s. The area is quiet, with boarded-up shops and rusted bus benches. Still, I accepted, figuring maybe it was someone leaving a late-night shift or waiting out the cold. I arrived at 2:48 a.m. and pulled up in front of the diner. There he was, a man in his early 30s, gray jacket, dark jeans, clean-shaven face. He stood perfectly still, staring at my car as if he'd been expecting me. He got in the back without a word, just gave a nod. I asked for his name. He said Kyle in a soft, flat voice. Destination, Greenland Apartments, about 20 minutes away. I drove in silence, glancing back occasionally. He just stared out the window the whole time. Calm, quiet, polite. When we arrived, he said, "Thank you," got out, and walked into the apartment building. Nothing weird, just another ride. Or so I thought. The next night, same shift. Around 2:44 a.m., I get the exact same ping. Wendell and 13th. Same name, Kyle. Same location. Same route. I thought maybe he was a nurse or something. Regular hours, right? But when I pulled up, he was already standing there, in the same position, same clothes, same stillness. I smiled. Back again. He got in, nodded, and gave me a quiet yes. Same destination, same route, same silence, same thank you when he got out. Night 3, same thing. Night 4 again. By night 5, I was starting to feel uneasy. This was beyond routine. It felt like a glitch in time, like I was caught in a loop. So I decided to break it. As we approached his destination, I said, "You know, this is the 5th time we've done this exact trip. Do you always head home this late?" He paused, like I'd just asked him to solve a riddle. Then he turned slowly and looked me in the eye, really looked at me, and said, "It's not the 5th time, Jeremy. You've taken me home 37 times now." I nearly swerved. "How do you?" But he was already looking back out the window. I dropped him off. He walked inside, but I didn't drive away. I waited. No lights came on in the building. I waited 10 minutes. No movement. No silhouette in the window. I got out and walked toward the door. No Kyle. No one inside the lobby. Just old mailboxes, dusty stairs, and silence. The next day, I searched Greenland Apartments online. No one named Kyle had ever been a resident there. Not recently. Not in the past 10 years. I called the building's management anonymously. They said apartment 2C, the unit he always entered, had been vacant since 2016. I asked what happened. Guy named Kyle lived there, the manager said. Quiet. Died in his sleep. Cold night. No one found him for 2 days. Real shame. That night I didn't drive. But at exactly 2:44 a.m., I got a ride loop notification on my phone, even though the app was turned off. Pick up Wendell and 13th. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. I didn't go. The next night, same notification, same location, same name, Kyle. I deleted the app. I thought that was the end of it. But the nightmare started. Dreams of driving the same street. Over and over, windshield fogging up. Back seat always occupied. but when I looked in the mirror, there was no face, just a dark blur. One night, I woke up gasping. My phone's clock said 2:44 a.m., and my car keys were missing from the hook. I found them in the driver's seat of my car. I haven't driven since. I moved out of Milwaukee last March, but I still get emails from Ride Loop. Passenger feedback, ratings, rides I supposedly completed, all at 2:44 a.m. Sometimes I wonder, am I caught in his loop? Or worse, was I always the passenger?